Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Sunday live stream. A special good midnight to Johnny. Thanks for starting so... No, I was going to thank you for starting so late. I apologize for starting so late in your time zone. But first, I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. Now, for those of you who haven't been to my live streams before, whoops, I've just locked my computer. That may seem like a strange way to start a live stream, but it's just part of my ongoing effort to educate myself a little about the history of the Aboriginal people of this area, the Wurundjeri people in Woiwurrung. So this is the Woiwurrung area. So, lip sync issues, possibly. Okay, maybe I need to do the whole live stream like this. Yeah, I am, okay, right before this stream. Now, I did a macOS update sometime during the week, and just before this live stream started, the Thunderbolt display adapter that I use, that I normally feed the video from here into my ATEM for capture, stopped working. It's just not even appearing as a monitor. So I've had to do a very quick, grab some HDMI cables and an HDMI splitter, and I'm using an external monitor running off a splitter, which is also splitting to the ATEM, and then, yeah. So there's stuff going on. It is quite likely that I have sync issues, and I need to... Yeah, Steve's lips. Say hello, Steve. So it is quite likely that I have sync issues. So, add a couple of frame delay on the sound input. Okay. I don't know if that's something that I want to mess around with right now while I'm on a live stream, but it's probably going to drive people nuts if I don't. So, let's see. ATEM software control. I'll fire this up and we'll see if we can fix it in a jiffy before I break everyone's minds. Because for some people, it really messes with their head. Media, audio. Okay, I'm in there. How do I add a delay? Yes, that's the lag cause. How do I add a delay in here? Media switcher, maybe it's in the setup, I don't know. Lip sync, maybe it's in the... sorry about this. Audio, input, mic, selector, general, split. No, I don't want to split. Multi-view labels. I'm not even sure where this is. In the audio tab. Okay, I'm in the audio tab. It's got split audio in general. Options, input one front. So Stephen asked, have I replaced the Mini with a MacBook Pro? No, sync looks okay to me. Maybe, I don't know what it is. All right, it's not really the right time to be messing around with this. Hang on, audio, pan, on, off, auto, AFV. I can't see anywhere to do the delay. So, all right. Yes, we'll just pretend that my name now is Max. Max Headroom. All right. Since some people aren't seeing it, I'm going to stop messing around with the sync issue. And the thing is that for a lot of this, I'm going to be showing stuff on the screen anyway. My head is going to be up, squished in the corner somewhere. And this isn't going to be too much of a problem. So, I've got a few things today. A few things. In fact, right before the live stream started, I had an unexpected Sunday delivery, and this arrived. So we may even get to the point of opening the box on this. I unwrapped it and haven't opened the box, but that is something that I've seen a couple of people... okay, Gerald42 said, pretend you were watching a karate video. All right, hang on. I am just going to pull something up. Notifications. All right, I've got to pause this. I know this is a weird way to be starting a live stream. This came up in my Facebook memories as a 7-year-old memory. Where am I going? Okay, so this is the video of me and Daniel Schuart. So it's me in the white. And this was 7 years ago today when we were at the gym just messing around with a few things. And Daniel said, hey, let's do flying arm bars. So Daniel's in the blue. So that's just me doing a flying arm bar on Daniel. That was so much fun. Okay, let's get rid of that and go back to here. Yes, I had hair then. Now, there is actually a topic for today. It's an important topic. We will get to it. You know how these things go. It always starts with me just randomly rambling. Now, this is something that I've been thinking about for quite a long time, and various circumstances have come about that have made me think, screw it, I'm just going to talk about it. It's something that I have kept behind the scenes okay, I am mentally reviewing how I'm going to explain this. Let's just do it in the usual random chasing squirrels way. Now, what I'm going to be talking about for a fair bit of today is business related, and many of you know a lot of the backstory of my own business situation. So over the years I've had several businesses. I was going to say the most successful, but yeah, it would be the most successful, but it depends on the metric. Not successful in terms of quality of life or mental health or anything like that. Definitely not the most successful from that point of view. But for most conventional metrics, the most successful business I've had has been Internet Vision Technologies, which at its peak, I had 42 staff, and it was doing pretty well for a while. Had some really serious problems along the way, which I won't get into because that's not really the point of this whole thing. But I've had different experiences in the business context over the years, and some of those experiences have been fantastic, some of them have been horrible, some of them have been in between, like everything. And so a lot of people, particularly that come along to these live streams, know me from the context of Superhouse, and slightly, one step removed from that, Freetronics, and have probably heard a little bit about the backstory of other things I've done, like IVT, and way back in the past, an electronic, like back when I was at uni, I had a small electronics business called Rotor Systems Research, and I used to do automotive electronics, so building aftermarket devices primarily for rotary powered performance, like street cars. And that was back when I was like 20 to 22, 23 years old, in that sort of region. And and also I worked for a security company for a while as an employee, and then after that I actually started my own security company and provided some services like contracting for people running events. Anyway, where is all this going? The point of all of this is that I don't love business. Many people do, and they see business as a game or a challenge or a puzzle to be solved, and it has rules. Sometimes those rules can be broken. There are principles that you follow, and For many people, the business is the goal. It almost doesn't matter what the business is. It is the game that they are playing. And people play it in all sorts of different ways. There are people who play it in a very aggressive way. There are people who play it in a very collaborative way. And there are people whose sole goal is to win regardless of anything else. And I've seen plenty of those. There are people who so there are plenty of people, particularly at the higher levels of business, who would be classified as sociopaths. So they have a lack of empathy and the ability to make decisions on the basis of what is going to be most beneficial to them directly, personally, regardless of how it affects anyone else. And of course, people with those sorts of characteristics can tend to be more successful in some ways because they don't have the same restrictions, I suppose, on the way they think about things and the way that they approach things. Which doesn't necessarily mean that they act in a short-term way. They can act in a long horizon sort of way, and they can do things that will be mutually beneficial in the short term, but ultimately your well-being and success doesn't matter to them. It doesn't even register. It's about how to engineer the situation to their own benefit. So I've had, as I said before, I've had lots of different experiences, and some things have been really, really good, some things have been bad, some things have been in between. And so, sorry, I'm just doing the moderation thing, allowing a comment through. Yep, cool. So, all right, so this is all kind of background. Where I'm going with this is I'm going to talk about the arrangement that Freetronics has had for more than a decade with a company in China based in Beijing. I'm going to show you all the information about them, so we'll get to that. What I'm trying to get to here is explaining some of the background, partly of why I'm revealing this sort of information and why it's commonly not revealed. And this ties into where I'm thinking of going with my own life and what's important to me, the things I want to achieve, and how I want to go about achieving them in a way that I feel good about and that makes the world better for, not just for me personally, but for anyone that I work with or anyone that I interact with. That's kind of the context of all of this. So, oh, Peter, I just saw you won't be sticking around because you got a migraine. I'm really sorry to hear that. I hope you feel better. So, yes, a dark room may be the solution. Yeah, take care, Peter. All right. So, one of the things that can force very secretive behavior, right, backing up, the usual approach in business is if you have an upstream supplier, such as a manufacturer who is making your product for you, the supply chain from the creation of the product to the end customer has a number of steps. Typically, like an OEM, there'll be the manufacturer who may be working on behalf of the original designer of the product. It then can go through the owner of the product. My terminology is not necessarily that clear, it's all a bit fungible. Then typically there'll be a distribution chain, like on the wholesale side, so it'll go through distributors, and then distributors to retailers, and retailers to the end customer. So there are a number of steps of the chain, and at each step of the chain there is value added and there is cost added. So what the end retail customer is paying is typically many, many times the cost of the raw bill of materials of the item that starts. So you have a product that might cost $10 in raw bill of materials. By the time it ends up in a customer's hands, they might be paying $100 for it or $200 for it. That's sort of just the way it works, because each step of the chain does provide value, and they also don't want to be cut out of the chain and bypassed. They want their value to be valued. So in the case of distributors, for example, wholesale distributors, the manufacturer of a product could sell directly to retailers, but there is a big overhead in doing that. You have to interact with the retailers directly. You might have many, many retailers. You have to do things like warehousing and distribution, so physical distribution of the goods. Whereas if you go through a wholesaler, that wholesaler can then have existing arrangements with all of the retailers, and the retailers buy from the wholesaler. And so the wholesaler doesn't want to be cut out of it, because potentially the retailers could go behind their back and buy straight from the original supplier and get a cheaper price. But the distributor is providing the value of keeping the stock there, making it available, having a single point of relationship for many different products. So anyway, I didn't start out with this talking about the structure of business. That wasn't really the point of it. So the point is that there are many people along the way, and for most people in this chain, starting from the factory that makes the products to the end customer, the consumer that gets it at the end of the day, it's a one-way relationship. And the idea is that each one of those steps traditionally is like a valve. Product can go from the factory and end up in the consumer's hands. But at each step of the way, each of those people acts as a gatekeeper, and they don't want the relationship to go behind them and move back up the chain, because they want to stay in that part of the relationship and stay valuable. Now, I'm not really explaining this very well, but part of this is about how this information is protected. If you're a consumer and you have a product in your hand, like this StarTech thing that I had plugged into my computer, the display link adapter that just stopped working right before the live stream. I bought this, I don't even know where I bought it, probably Officeworks or something. So I bought this from a retailer. I don't know who their distributor is or their wholesaler they got it from. I might be able to find out if I went back to the wholesaler. Then I wouldn't know who the factory is that manufactured it. And they don't want me going back up the chain, because what they don't want is someone at the end of the chain going further back up the chain and buying directly and bypassing them. So that sort of information is usually very well protected. And of course there are lots of contracts and things that are in place, like non-compete agreements and exclusive distribution agreements and all of those sorts of things. It's all designed to keep the system, I was going to use the word stagnant, but that's not the right word. Stagnant is not the right word. It's because that implies that it's bad or destructive or deteriorating. And it's not really that. It's more a matter of static, I suppose, is a better way of putting it. It's a way of keeping the structure in place and maintaining it. And to some extent, with open source projects and the sorts of things that I do, that is all turned around a little bit, or it's all a bit shaken up. Because if I sell a board to someone, okay, say this one, say we've got the Rack 32 board. This board, how much am I listing it for? $119, which is a lot. I admit that's a premium price for a little board like this. If you look at the cost of the bill of materials, it's not $119 worth of parts on there. But The thing is that I've published the designs for this. Like all of the source files, the Eagle files, the schematic, the PCB layout, everything is all published under an open source license on GitHub. If someone looks at this and says, I would like that, but I don't want to pay 119 bucks for it. I want to just make it myself. I have published the designs so that anyone can go and do that. You can download my files, you can generate Gerbers, you can send them off to a PCB fab, you can have the PCB made, you can buy the parts, you can populate it, etc. So you can bypass that entire chain. But this is the thing, most people don't have the knowledge, the resources, it doesn't make economic sense. It is simpler to simply pay the $119, buy this, and you've got the problem solved, versus spending probably days of time in generating the files, finding a PCB place, getting them manufactured, sourcing all the parts, assembling it. You're not even necessarily sure if you're going to get it working properly. It hasn't been tested, so you've got to do it yourself. If you just want a one-off, it makes no economic sense to reproduce it yourself. It's much simpler to just buy it because I've solved that problem. And so this is where the commercial relationship with assemblers and all of those sorts of things comes in. So if I all right, so this is where stuff can be secretive even in the open source world, because the relationship that I have now in this particular case, this is actually not a good example for what I'm talking about, because I personally assembled this board right here in this room. All of the Rack 32s I personally assembled, so it's not part of this equation. What I should have done is planned ahead and got something to wave around as a prop. In fact, I am going to show you some Freetronics stuff, and I want to show you some packaging as well, because this is part of the value of what I want to get at, and some of the services that this company that I'm going to talk about provides. And Maria says sell it as an NFT. Yeah. Oh, so did David. Yep. Chip says status quo. Yes, you're right. Maintaining the status quo. And so did David. A few people said that. Yeah. Now, okay. So this is Superhouse stuff, which I produced here. I have had Superhouse boards produced in China as well at this other company. But what I'm going to do is grab out a thing from just here, because I know it might seem a little bit unnecessary to have props to wave around at you when I'm kind of explaining things, but I like to explain things with props. And it also gives me a chance to show you a couple of other things related to it in terms of packaging. So I'll just... Okay, so Freetronics, that's what I'm talking about today. And you can see there is a board in retail packaging. It's got the hang tag so that it can go into a retail store and people can walk up and buy it and take it to the register and scan the barcode and buy it. It's a proper retail product. And this particular product, the board was assembled in China, in Beijing, and which it may not be where you expect. You probably thought it would be in Shenzhen or somewhere like that. And the packaging was also done in that area, and I'll show you some packaging information in a minute, including the plastics in here, which are all custom plastics. The injection molds and everything were made for us, so for Freetronics, so it's all custom done. And yeah, so Peter says, planning a live stream over my dead body. Yeah, it's not planned. The general topic is planned, and then I'm just going to ramble. So, okay. Now, this is the thing. Coming back to the history of Freetronics and how this has all come about, and some of my not so fun experiences in business have been in relation to Freetronics. Freetronics in general has been pretty good. It's just, there are a couple of hiccups that happen along the way, including the whole experimenter's kit fiasco that many of you would know about. So in the early days of Freetronics, to give some context, one of the reasons that it came about, or one of the reasons that it ended up being successful and shipped a lot of product, was the relationship with Electus Distribution and Jaycar. So Jaycar being the retailer with stores all over Australia, and I think elsewhere now, New Zealand definitely. And Electus Distribution is the wholesale arm that is behind Jaycar. So Electus purchases from all of the suppliers and then sells to Jaycar, and then Jaycar sells to customers. So we did not supply Jaycar. We supplied Electus Distribution, which then supplied Jaycar. That's the way the relationship worked. And this is slightly off topic, but Carl asked, do I have an idea on the ratio of people buying the prefab and assembling board versus making them themselves with open source projects like this? And the short answer is no, I don't. But that is something I've thought about a bit, and maybe we will get to that topic. So, okay, so the issue with selling through Electus and Jaycar is that we were doing large volumes, like we're talking up like shipping container sort of size, and or LCLs, which is what's called LCL is less than container load. It's when you have like typically pallets loaded with a forklift, and the pallets go into a container. So what you're paying for is part of a shipping container, and that's the sort of volumes that we used to do. In fact, there were some. I had a photo at one point where my entire double garage was stacked like on the floor up to like above head height, so like 2 pallets worth of height, multiple rows just filling the double garage, and that was stock that had come from China and was then dropped off at my place, at my house, and then from there was shipped to Sydney. That didn't usually happen. What usually happened was we had an arrangement where after manufacturing there would be overland freight from Beijing, which I'll get to in a minute, all the way down. China is a huge place, but so it would take a multi-day trip overland from Beijing, which is way up in the north, right at the top. It would end up all the way down in the south and go out most commonly on a container ship going out of Hong Kong. It would go from Hong Kong to Sydney, and then from Sydney it would go and be distributed all over Australia. But I would not physically see that. Like, there would be shipping containers that would travel, and it would all be numbers in a spreadsheet, and I didn't actually physically have any contact with any of it. The relationship was managed by doing the arrangements with the assembler in Beijing, and then logistics to get it to the collection point. And I think the collection point from memory was actually in Shanghai. Stretching my memory now. So Electus had a collection point, and we would do shipments into their depot, and from there I think it went overland to Hong Kong, and then from there on the ship heading out. Anyway, this is all sorts of details in the weeds that don't really matter all that much. But the result was we shipped literally container loads of Arduinos. We were doing pretty big volume, but margin was pretty close to zero. Now, this is not really the place. I hadn't really even been intending to get into this. This is like, this is not really the point of the story. And but this is just to give some context, because a lot of people, when they hear about Freetronics and the sort of volume that it does, or that it did, they think oh, I must have made bucket loads of money out of it. But the reality is that I would be doing like $100,000 orders and making almost nothing. So, and in some cases making negative profit, because part of the commercial arrangement originally was that all of our prices to Electus were quoted in Australian dollars. All of our costs are in US dollars, and the margin was quite small. So as the exchange rate fluctuated, as the Australian dollar fell, our costs would go up, and we would be paying out our costs in US dollars and selling in Australian dollars. There were a few times where we would get an order, like we might get an order for $40,000 or $50,000 worth of Arduino boards, and it would actually cost us money. Like we would lose money on the order because it cost us more to manufacture them and get them into the depot, get them transported to the depot, than we were being paid for them in Australian dollars by the time you work it all backwards. So it was really, really marginal doing big volume, shipping a lot of boards, like a really freaky number of boards, but making essentially zero on it. And what that was doing was that, but that volume gave us some benefits. One of the benefits was that we were not just going to assemblers and saying, can you make me 50 of this board or 100 of this board? We were going to them and saying, can you make us 10,000 of this board? And it gets you a totally different level of service and engagement. All right. Daniel said, please the GitHub link with Eagle files for PCB presented before. Which one? Do you mean the Freetronics one? That one? That's the... So this is one that was done as a crowdfunded campaign many, many years ago. This one, and it hasn't been actually sold for years. This is a brand new one in its box, kind of kept as a memento because it was from a successful crowdfunding campaign. Or do you mean the Rack 32? So I can, yeah, both of those are on GitHub. Yeah. So Daniel, whichever one you prefer, whichever one you need, I can give you the links to those. Yeah. Mako says, I'd be scared of paying for the initial investment bill for a large order. That's the other thing, is that the capital involved is significant, and the trading terms really, really matter. And if you have to front up for a $40,000 or $50,000 production run, and then you are getting, and there are all sorts of terms that come into this. I'm not going to get into this. This is still background. I'm still not even getting to the point that I want to get to, which is, like, there are all sorts of terms like FOB, like you'll see trade terms like FOB China or whatever. So like freight on board and that sort of thing, and FOB and COD and consignment arrangements and yeah, lots of things. So one thing I will say, now, over the years I have said some bad things about Electus. One thing that they did early on, which really, really helped, and I've got to give them credit for this, is they were willing to negotiate our contract terms in terms of deposits and those sorts of things. So typically when you're dealing with very large companies, you have to wear all the risk. You have to pay for everything up front. You ship your goods to them. They don't even necessarily pay you for them. Like sometimes it'll be, their credit terms will be 90 days end of month from receipt, which means if you deliver them like in the middle of the month, you won't get paid for 3.5 months. And in that time, they've probably sold a bunch of it and they've got the money in. So what it's doing is putting all of the risk on you, and they take none of the risk. and or it might be a consignment deal where they take it all and then they pay you for what they sell. Now, in the early days, there were some people that we were dealing with at Electus who were hard-nosed, and they wanted the best, obviously, for their business, but they recognized that in order for that to happen, they had to make it possible for us to supply them. And so they were actually very good about providing things like deposits and upfront payments for some orders, which is really, really good. Yeah. And that was what really allowed Freetronics to scale up to those sorts of volumes very quickly with a very small capital investment. It was essentially a whole bunch of time and arrangements, putting in place the relationships, and setting things up with the with suppliers and things, and yeah. Oh, so Daniel, after the one with the ESP32 and Ethernet, yeah, that is the Rack 32. I will drop that in the chat. Rack 32, and here it is. So, practicing what I preach. If you want to buy it from me, you can buy it from me. Although the stock level is actually 0 right now. That's another story. I've got a whole rack of these ready, except for loading the final firmware. And stock level should be added on that very soon. But if you do want to look at the design files, it's all there. I'm not hiding it from anyone. Now, okay, so where to go with this? All right, the segue to the thing about the actual company that does all, and still after 12 years provides all of the services to Freetronics, is that, and what's really prompted me to bring this whole subject up and talk about it in a very open way now, is thinking about what I want to be doing. And I've kind of got into that. Maybe it's because I'm doing that transition now to being a grumpy old man where I just don't care anymore. And I will just say things because it's like repercussions, who cares? There have been a few. Austin says we have new firmware with OTA. Awesome. So the okay, I've had a couple conversations with a number of people recently, like at my similar sort of age range to me. So I'm 51, and I've had multiple conversations with people who have said some variation of, I'm just thinking about what to do with my business over the next 10 years or so. I need to, I need to plan what the next 10 years is going to be, because that's going to take me through to retirement. And it's made me think, wow, yeah, that kind of is, at this age, that kind of is the situation. It's thinking about that very finite amount of time that is left. And what do I really want to be doing? Do I want to keep doing the things that I've been doing all of this time? Do I want to be experiencing the anxiety and all of the negatives and doing things that I don't want to be doing? And yes, I know this sounds like a midlife crisis talk. It kind of is. But it's not just midlife. It's a matter of having some perspective on life and am I doing the right thing? This is a question that you can ask yourself at any stage in life. It's just that at certain things happen, or certain conversations happen, that bring it into focus. And then, for me at least, I start thinking, do I want to make changes? If I'm going to make changes, I should just do it. Why think about, oh, I'm going to do that in a few years' time? Like, do it now. Think about it now. And that's really where I'm at. And so thinking about all of those sorts of things, a large part of this comes down to that pick and place machine road trip as well. So yes, Austin said dreams tweet, Superhouse. Yeah. So the opportunity, and there is a whole series of dominoes that have led to this point. I'm not going to backtrack too much and go into all of this, but where I have ended up having this opportunity where I put out that it began with that, oh, if anybody knows of a pick and place machine sitting in a corner that needs a new home, let me know. That was an almost flippant tweet. I had like a vague hope that something might come of it, but I didn't really think that only weeks later I would be driving to Canberra and picking up pick and place machines and bringing them back to Melbourne and thinking, okay, now where are these going to live? What am I going to do? James says, summary, you only live once. Yes. So what it's done is opened some possibilities for me and made me think there are avenues I can pursue. There are decisions I can make and changes that I can make that will maybe it's a mistake. I don't know. But let's give it a go. Let's just see where this leads. And so I've been thinking more about this whole thing of business circumstances and business relationships and what sort of business I want to be doing, who I want to be doing business with, what customers I want to be doing business with, what suppliers I want to be doing business with, and how to make those relationships as positive as possible and as beneficial to everyone as possible. I started thinking about the whole thing I was talking about earlier with the supply chain and the secretiveness and not wanting to expose upstream. And this is really where the whole train of thought about Electus came about. So in the early days of Electus and Freetronics supplying Electus, my business partner, Mark Alexander, who for, I don't know, like the last 9 years or something has been in LifeX, however long that is was very paranoid about exposing anything to Electus. And I think probably with very good cause, considering what happened, considering how things went with Electus and the experimenter kit fiasco and all of that sort of stuff, he was right, absolutely right, to try to hide as much from Electus and JCar as our customers as possible so that they could not go around us and bypass us and go to our manufacturer and source directly and cut us out. Because if the opportunity was there, I'm pretty sure they would have done it. So what his goal was to prevent that opportunity from coming up. Now, there were a bunch of things we did. One of the things was that every time stock arrived in our hands, the very first thing to do was to anonymize everything. All of the shipping information, any invoices, packing lists, any piece of paperwork that was related to upstream was destroyed immediately. And so all boxes were opened. They were checked to make sure there was nothing inside them, like no packing lists inside them, nothing that have a name on it or anything like that. The whole goal was to anonymize the upstream sources of where all of this stuff came from, so that by the time it went down the next step in the chain, there was no way to trace back to where it came from. That was like an information firewall. And because a lot of what we were doing was LCL shipments within China directly to the distribution point or the pickup point in Shanghai, what we did was register a company in Hong Kong. So we set up, so in conjunction with our manufacturer in Beijing, we registered a corporate entity, so a company in Hong Kong, which acted as the exporter. And the idea was that that would act as a barrier, so that when shipments arrived, like if we had a truck that arrived in Shanghai and with a whole like pallets full of stuff to be loaded to go into a container, the shipper of that would be the Hong Kong company. And that Hong Kong company was us. It was Freetronics, essentially. And so it couldn't, that was once again an information firewall. It was to prevent someone in the distribution center or the collection center in Shanghai from receiving a shipment and grabbing a piece of paperwork and saying, oh, this came from the factory there. And so pass that information along. And then our customer bypass us, go straight to the factory and say, please make us 100,000 of these. And we would be out of the game. So that was the approach and that approach has pretty much continued for the entire history of Freetronics. It started out with that approach, that mindset of don't trust anyone and protect information. And of course, if things had continued, well, what ended up happening, things went sour. I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Things went sour with Electus. That relationship has ended. We're not supplying them. We haven't supplied them for years. If you walk into a JCar store, in many stores, there is still Freetronics stuff. They still have some stock of odds and ends and things. It's probably all like faded by now. But even reasonably recently, it was still possible to go into a JCar store and you could still see a few of the blue and yellow packages. And where was I going with that? I need a quick drink. Fancy, I'm drinking out of a glass today. Yeah, so that has been the approach. And it has been a very adversarial mindset to business and a way of thinking about my customers or Freetronics' customers almost as the enemy, so this is starting to come down to the whole thing of my change in philosophy about this and my grumpy old man mindset that is developing of just not caring anymore, because I don't want to have that mindset anymore. I'm tired of it. I don't want to be looking over my shoulder and being paranoid about people ripping me off. Maybe this is opening myself up too much. Maybe this is giving people the opportunity to take advantage of me. And to that I say, go for it. Not quite. But I can't be bothered anymore dealing with rubbish and doing things in a paranoid way. What I want is to be able to conduct business in a way that is respectful and mutually beneficial and trusting. Not necessarily. There is a limit, obviously. I'm not here to be taken advantage of. There need to be boundaries. There needs to be acceptable behavior in all relationships. And so what I'm not saying is, hey, go and rip me off and take advantage of me. I need to still be able to enforce boundaries, and this is a large part of it, is not doing business with people that have that sort of approach, that adversarial approach. And this is something that has really changed in my own head over the last little while. For most of the time that I've been in business, like through IVT days and all of those sorts of things, I've had the grab more of the pie sort of approach of thinking that all customers are good customers, and the more we get, the better. But it's not true. Sometimes dealing with business partners or customers or suppliers who are who are a negative in the relationship takes away your time, your energy, your focus, your opportunities to deal with people that are much better to deal with. And this has really been driven home to me over the last 2 years in particular. So it's nearly 2 years now that I've been doing contracting work for a couple of clients. Well, more than a couple, but I have some contracting clients, and you've all seen me talk about the water cannon. And so Simon, who is my customer for the water cannon, awesome guy, really, really good to work with. His project is technically interesting, it's challenging, and he is fantastic to work with. He's very, very smart. He talks things through. He listens and understands. He has his own perspective. It's one of those positive, constructive relationships that makes it a pleasure to work on that project. I want to work on it not only because the project itself is good and he pays me, I want to work on it because he is a great customer, and I really value the relationship. And I can honestly say that for every customer that I am now working with on contracting projects. Simon is okay for me to talk about his water cannon publicly, like I've shown it on live streams. My other clients, for many reasons, don't want their projects disclosed. But in terms of the way I work with them, it's very similar. The relationships are really good. I'm very, very happy in working with them, and there is that mutual respect that just makes it all worthwhile. It makes it good. Now, the thing is that if I was working with other clients who were not nice people, they might have good projects. Like the projects could be worthwhile. They could be technically interesting. They could pay well. But if the relationship with the client at a personal level is not there and it's not good, that then is taking away from my opportunity to work with people like Simon and not just do something good and not just make money from it, but also feel good about it and have a good time doing it. So that is, and so saying no to people and not pursuing projects or not pursuing customers or suppliers or whoever can be as important as saying yes. It's a matter of giving yourself the space to do those good things and work with those good people. And once again, this comes back to this, I've been saying grumpy old man, but I think it's not so much grumpy old man, it's more a matter of why do something that isn't good? Or why do something that has all of these negative connotations and side effects? And why work on things that are going to cause anxiety and And I understand, just as a slight sideline, I understand that being in a situation of being able to make those sorts of decisions is a privilege. And for many people, I'm not quite sure how to put this. The fact that I am now in, I'm going around and around in different ways to put it. I am now in a situation where, from my own personal satisfaction point of view with the projects I'm working on, with my commercial contracting clients, also with Chris on the assistive technology projects, my personal satisfaction level is the highest it has ever been in like my entire life. The things that I'm doing feel like they are worthwhile, good things, and all of the people that I'm working with are good people. And being able to get to that point meant saying no to some things. It means walking away from some things. Now, that can be tricky. It's definitely possible to be in a situation where you can't turn down business even though it's a negative relationship because you don't have any other options. Now, I recognize that, and I'm not even really sure how to address that. That is a whole squirrel that I could chase, but let's not, because I want to get back to the main point. So, yeah, as Stephen says, learning how and when to say no is a life skill. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so getting back to the Freetronics supplier. All of this has been setting the scene for explaining why I have kept this secret for all of these years, and the mindset that I've had for all of these years, and how that has changed. And so, okay, on the subject of relationships with customers and suppliers and business partners and that sort of thing, I've been coming more and more to the conclusion that it has to be beneficial to everyone. And so what I've been talking about so far is wanting to have relationships that are positive for me, but I also have to think about it in terms of the other people having a relationship with me that is positive to them. Now, if I am not giving them something that benefits them, and they are not having a good time in their relationship with me, that's no good. Like, it could be a fantastic deal for me. I could be getting paid lots of money and having a great time and think it's all good. But if the other people that I'm working with aren't also benefiting from it, it's not good. It needs to be mutual. And that sort of train of thought is really where it's gone to in terms of talking about this company. So I realized, and this has all come about like within the last week. It's only within, in fact, sooner than that, it's only within the last couple of days that I have thought, hey, why don't I, yes, sorry, I'm being a little bit scattered, that I have thought, I have been getting benefit from my relationship with my supplier in Beijing for 12 years. I have been buying from them, like paying them to do assembly. But I've also seen their business sort of, go through ups and downs over the years. 12 years is a long time to be in a business relationship with someone, with one company. And it made me think about what benefit do they get from having me as a customer. Now, there is the obvious thing, and that is I buy stuff from them. I send them money, they send me goods. It's a win-win. But it needs to be more than that. And that's where this whole thing about the attitude to business and the mentality comes in, because they have been extremely good to me and I want them to succeed. I want their business to do really well. And that is not just a matter of, yeah, and that goes beyond having me as someone who sends them money in exchange for goods. If their business is going to succeed, then there is more that I can do to help them succeed. I want their business to go really well. And one of the ways I can do that is reveal who they are, because it's like having a, I don't know, I was thinking of analogies. It's a terrible one. But it's like having, say you have a shoe shop and you're the famous cobbler out the front of the shop, and you've actually got a bunch of unnamed people slaving away out the back making the shoes, and you're out the front selling them and taking all the credit, and they're not getting the credit for the work that they do. So anyway, what am I going to do? What I'm going to do is, I might as well just bring this up. I'm going to bring up a website. What? Have I lost my internet connection? Let's see. Ah, here we go. Okay. So this site, I'm going to drop in the chat. There we go. It's too late to back out now. Where are we? Desktop. This company, which funny thing was that for years we'd never actually heard their name said and didn't know how to pronounce it. So, well, I will say it the correct way first. It's Scottree. But for years I was pronouncing this as Shottree. And so then when I discovered that it was actually meant to be pronounced Scottree, it just seemed totally weird to me. So this company, which was started by Michael Zhang and a few of his friends, I'm not sure what their actual company structure is now, but Michael is definitely the person that has been running the business for the time that I've been dealing with them. Also, one thing I should say is that this site looks terrible. That's just the way it is. But I'm going to talk a bit more about what they do for me and explain why. If you are looking for a company to do a whole range of services for product manufacturing, etc., packaging, all of the associated stuff, why you should go and talk to these people and why I like them so much. They've, just from a business point of view, and this comes down to the whole relationship thing as well, and doing business with good people. In all of the time and all of the orders that have run through Shottree, oh, I said it again, I've got to get into the habit of saying Scottree. They have never done anything wrong by me. They've never leaked information. They've always been fantastic to deal with and very helpful, gone out of their way to solve problems, etc. So anyway, where this is, we're moving into a different phase of the conversation now. So, well, I think it might be time for another drink. But now you know, this is the name of the company that has been making Freetronics boards and packaging since 2009, I think it is. I'm pretty sure it's 2009. And shipping container loads of boards. All right, now, maybe a little, I need to explain a little bit of background as well, so that you understand the nature of what this company is and the different types of companies that you will find. Now, if you are going to, if you are looking for assembler, so there are different terms. I'm going to use all sorts of different terms here, some of them probably in the wrong way. There will be terms that you will find. Okay, backing up a little bit. Who cares about this? If you have, if you're maybe in the open source space and you want to take the next step and have your products manufactured rather than be assembling a few boards at home yourself, or you have a business where you want to outsource a whole lot of things like board assembly and testing and firmware loading and packaging production and potentially distribution and other related things, then there are a number of businesses that you can engage, different types of businesses as well. Terms that you'll come across are things like PCBA, which is printed circuit board assembly. And there are many companies now like JLC PCB, which provide, so what you'll find is that there are companies that start with one part of the chain, like bare PCB manufacturing, and then they add a service to that. So if as a hobbyist you are accustomed to going to somewhere like JLC PCB or All PCB or PCB Way or PCB Cart or one of the many other, or Dirty PCBs, one of the many Chinese bare PCB houses. Oh, excuse your, I apologize to your ears. I should have muted before I did that. So if you're accustomed to going to those sorts of places, what will happen is that you order a PCB, it comes to you as a bare PCB, it is your responsibility then to do everything from that point on. You have to buy components and you then have to fit them on the board, so you have to do the assembly, you have to do the cleaning, firmware loading, testing, packaging, and everything else. Now that sequence, starting from the bare PCB, what you'll find is that many companies begin to work along that value chain and add those services. So LCSC, for example, which is the sister company of JLC PCB, is a place for you to source the parts. Then you can go to JLC PCB and say, I want you to make my PCBs and also assemble it. So they provide the PCBA service. But they won't do, or maybe they do, I'm not sure. But I don't think they will do any testing. They will take your board, they will put the parts where you tell them, they will send the boards to you. Whether it does anything, whether it works, that is entirely on your shoulders. You have to solve that problem. So then the next step in the chain is the testing, and then all of the steps that come beyond that. So what you'll find is that depending on what your needs are in terms of your scale and your capabilities, there are different companies that will provide different parts of this sequence. Everything from the bare PCB and nothing else, all the way through to companies that will provide you with the retail packaged product with the instructions printed and stuck in the back, the firmware loaded, fully tested, the boards washed, they printing the packaging, injection molding the plastic, ready to go. So this, for example, I haven't actually opened this box. This arrived in this form. Go to the overhead camera. That arrived in my hands in that form from Scottree in China. I have never opened it, never had to do a thing. I can put that in a box and send it to a customer. My job is done. So that is the other end of the scale. It is when you get the entire package with all of that value added and you end up with a complete thing at the end of the day. So that is, so bare PCB through to complete retail ready packaged product. That's kind of the scope of what we're talking about. Now, Stephen says the design looks very Web 1.0. Yes, very. You find that with a lot of Chinese websites. Some of them are very flashy and quite up to date, but a lot of Chinese sites look like this. Sorry, I shouldn't be on the desktop. That one. Yeah. Oh, okay. So let's now where are we? Home. Okay. So that's just to give you some context about the sorts of services or the things that you might want done. Maybe you only want bare PCBs. Maybe you want retail ready stuff in a box, all packaged ready to go. And so, what they do is, okay, so the way Scottree works, the closest analogy I can think of is that they are project managers or an agency, because they don't have their own factory. Like, in terms of, they don't have a factory with pick and place machines. They don't have printing presses. They, for doing the packaging. They don't have injection molding machines. What they have are people who have relationships with suppliers for all of those things. And so, as Johnny says, JLC is a prototype service and not a manufacturing service. Yeah. And so what Scottree will do is act as an intermediary and act as your agent on your behalf in negotiating and interacting with the local suppliers of all of those services. Now, as I mentioned previously, they're located in Beijing, which is way, way up to the north. It's right at the top end of China. And you're probably accustomed to most electronic stuff coming out of Shenzhen, down right in the south of China, just over the border from Hong Kong. And so it seems to be a little bit strange that they are located here. But there is also a very strong tech industry. Speaking of which, I just got a notification pop up on my phone from DHL saying that there is a JLC PCB order arriving today. It's on a truck right now. That will be the Rockling PCBs for everybody that's following that project, and the swag badge PCBs, the Tux swag badge. Anyway, it might seem strange to be getting all of these services out of Beijing, but there is a very strong tech industry in Beijing as well. It's one of the tech hubs of China, particularly like 12 to 15 years ago, like back around the times that all of this stuff started. So Johnny says, for large orders, you go to a contract manufacturer. Yeah. So what Scottree do is have relationships with those local factories, many of whom do not have representatives who can speak English. They are typically dealing with the Chinese domestic market. There are, as Westerners, we are accustomed to dealing with a limited number of suppliers within China. There are companies in China that are outward facing, like JLC obviously, and many other companies. But that is a very small subset of the companies that operate in China. The Chinese market, the domestic market, is enormous. It's you can't even get your head around how big it is. Like the number of units that they sell domestically, it's like, I don't know, there are all sorts of things I could talk about. Like There's a little car company. I mean, this may no longer be true, but a couple of years ago, there's a little car company in China called BYD, and BYD, which I'm sure that for the vast majority of people here, you've never heard of BYD. Biggest electric car company in the world, and also the biggest battery manufacturer in the world. You've never heard of them. They're the biggest in the world because they sell their cars in China. So the sort of the scale of industry that exists over there, the number of companies and businesses is enormous, and almost all of it is invisible to us as Westerners. We don't have we typically don't have a way to interact with them or to engage them. And so where Scottree fits in, and where they have been so good for Freetronics and for me, is acting as that interface. They deal with all of the local suppliers, and they act as me in China and maintain all of those relationships and stay on top of things. They will physically go to factories and oversee what's happening and make sure that boards are being assembled correctly. One thing that I really admire about the service that Scottree has provided me over the years is their obsession with quality and making sure that what comes out is exactly what I want. Like, there have been many times where there has been something that has happened with a supplier, and something like one thing you would have seen, in fact, this PCB, the one that I was waving around before, it's a yellow PCB. Yellow solder mask is really hard to do, and it's very hard to get consistent. The yellow as a paint has almost no opacity. It's like a tint that just shows through whatever is underneath it. So getting a good yellow finish is really hard. And there are many times that I have had people from Scottree contact me saying, we've had these boards made, but look at the color of it. It's not quite right. What do you think? Is this acceptable? And they'll send me a photo of two boards side by side, and one is like a reference color or a previous production run, and one is the new run that has just come out of a factory. And most suppliers wouldn't have even questioned that. They would just say, you asked for yellow, it's yellow, you get what you get. But they are there obsessing over the shade of yellow to make sure that it is exactly what I wanted. Yeah, David B says cadmium and titanium pigment. Yes. So titanium powder is typically what's used in things like white paint to make it opaque. I used to work in a paint factory a long time ago, at a place called The Paint Factory that people in Melbourne may remember. There was a franchise business. Well, originally it was companies, and then company stores, and then they started opening up franchise retail stores called The Paint Factory. It had a big buy one get one free promo for years. And they had an actual factory in Bayswater. It was just down the road from me. It was where all the paint was manufactured in big vats. So yes, big bags of titanium powder being poured into the into the vats. Anyway, this has been your regularly scheduled squirrel. All right, so let me just talk about this. So the owner / manager of this business is Michael, and over the years they've been very consistent with their staff. That's the other thing. The number of people that I've interacted with, I've interacted with people over many years. They have very low staff turnover. And let's just have a quick look. So all of this live stream is kind of a promo for Scottree. Oh well, that's the way it is. Let's see what services they've got. Electronics manufacturing. I think there are some photos of Freetronics things in here. Machining, value added. No. Easy bomb. Cool PCB. Anyway, what am I looking for? Easy bomb. Nah. Anyway, they've got these different names. Oh look, there are some Freetronics products. There's a Freetronics box. So the yeah, well, this kind of summarizes it. Just focus on your design. We do the rest for you. So what they've done is, I'm going to switch to overhead camera. Let's have a look at this. Not that. I'm going to look at this. Open this box up. Now, this packaging, the external cardboard box they had made, and you can see that it's actually a relatively complex job because of the finishes. It may not show up all that well on the camera, but there is a UV overprint. There is an embossing. You can't, maybe you can see it from the back. This little ridge, you can't really see it, but what's happened is that this cardboard has been stamped in order to cut out the shapes. Like, it was obviously printed as a flat sheet. All of the shapes were stamped out of it, and it's also been stamped with an embossing stamp. So the logo that is on here is raised. You can just feel that it sticks out, and on the back there's a little indentation. So the whole sheet has been stamped in order to do the cuts and do the embossing, and it's been printed, and it's also been UV overprinted. Now if I get the angle of the light just right, you can see that, hang on, I've got to do this again. That's better. If I get the angle of the light just right, you'll see that it's shiny through this blue area. It's not shiny in this yellow area. And that's because there is UV overprint on top of the blue to make it shiny. This is a satin finish. And then you'll see there are strips here that are also shiny. So there is UV overprint on those strips. So we've got a custom-made box. This box is actually designed by Mark in Adobe Illustrator, and we send it to them as an Illustrator file. They have done the custom cutting, printing, UV overprint, the embossing. So that is not a simple box. Oh, and it's glued. So it's been folded and glued. There's a glue joint through there. And if I open it out, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the whole point is producing something like this level of retail packaging is not a simple job. And these plastics, these are all custom plastics that were done for Freetronics. And if I open this up, it's two clamshell halves that clip together. And the board sits in there, and there is room in there for USB cable. There's foam in it. There are instructions that are printed and folded. So we've got instructions that go in there. These plastics are all custom injection molded. We had, so this was all designed in SolidWorks, and the SolidWorks files were sent over to them. They had the molds, so there are actually 4. Originally there were 4, now there are 6 different pieces of plastic, because we've got a segmented version, there is a single compartment version, and now there is a short version, and they've got top and bottom pieces. So we sent them the SolidWorks files, and they did the rest. This is what we got. It's amazing. I'm really, really impressed. Now this was 10 years ago, 11 years ago that this was done. And what they did was work with a local packaging company to to do the machining for the molds, for the injection molding. And then they had a whole lot of these shells made in a reasonable quantity. And okay, so this packaging, this custom made plastic package, and this complex overprinted, stamped, embossed, full color cardboard shell, like this together, I think it costs us I haven't looked at the numbers for a while, but it cost us something in the region of 50 cents. So yeah, the way that we achieved that, and this once again is one of the things that I am appreciative to Electus and JCar for, is they gave us the volume in the early days that we could go to packaging companies, and we weren't just saying, I want you to make me 100 of this box. We were saying, we want you to make 10,000 as our first batch, and then we'll order more after that. And that's really what got us over this, because things like making the molds, like the CNC machined molds that are used for the injection molding, you can pay $10,000 just to have the molds made. And so you've really got to get that sort of volume in order to be able to make that possible. But the thing is that in terms of making the arrangements, this was all done by Scottree. We sent them the SolidWorks files, we liaised with them, they talked to the local companies that did the injection molding, so that'd be one company that does the injection molding, another company that does the printing and the box, stuff, and then they pull it together and arrange how these two things come from those two factories and end up in the same place. And then they arrange for the people to stick this in the box and close it all up and put it in a shipping box, and then the shipping box goes in. They put it into like a little 6-way box, which was also custom made for us. We had boxes made, so if you've bought something from Freetronics or Superhouse and it's come in one of those white boxes, it's kind of like half a shoebox size. That box was custom made, and that was custom made specifically to fit 6 of these boxes into it. It fits the size perfectly. And then those boxes go into shipping boxes, and then those shipping boxes go onto pallets, and then the pallets go into a container, and it all scales up. But achieving that was literally some emails between us and it was Sonia at the time. So the person who was managing our projects at Scottree, her name was Sonia, and she's no longer at the company, but she was there for like 7 years or so, a long time, and she did all of the arrangements for that. So the name of the person that John says the clear packaging is vacuum form, not injection molding. Right. Yeah, so this was done multiple times in multiple ways, and it took a few iterations to get it right. One of the big problems with this was the fit, and somewhere around I've still got some early prototypes that where it didn't quite snap properly, and it would end up either too tight and it would deform when it was closed, or too loose and it would just fall apart. So it went through a few iterations. But John, you're right. I think you're right. Yes, I am misremembering this, because this is ancient history. It's one of those things where it was done so many years ago, and then it has just continued ever since. So this possibly is just vacuum formed. In any case, it was something that took a surprisingly small amount of effort from our part to make that happen. Okay. So, yeah, where are we? So the name of the person, if you are interested in any of this, the name of the person to talk to is Alec. And if you email sales@easyoem.com, then it is probably either Alec or Michael that will respond to you. And so what they've done, what I'm going to do, let's see if I can find some, I should move that off there so I don't reveal it too much. I'm going to find some photos from Beijing. No, that's the wrong folder. I'm looking for, let's see. So probably, when would it be? June. I'm just scrolling through a whole bunch of things. Would it be June 2013, I think? Would be in one of the interesting trips. I am. Here we go. Okay. Let's look at some photos. It's photo time. Hang on, I'll look at it there. There are going to be some photos here. He'd probably hate me showing this, but anyway, this is in one of the factories where we were having some boards made. That's Mark, my business partner at Freetronics, and you can't quite see her, but in the green dress just behind him is Sonia from Scottree. And let's try what am I looking for? Yeah, I'm just trying to find some more pictures. That one? That one? No. What happened to that picture? I don't know. All right. So here's another picture. This is inside a factory. Oh, you can see an out of focus Sonia in the background there. So this is boards that we were having made at a factory in Beijing. And what you'll find here, basically this is a whole bunch of photos. I took these photos, which means that I'm not in any of them. And it's just a bunch of photos of Mark and other people at the factory. So these are some boards that that Freetronics was having made at a factory outside, in Beijing, sort of on the outskirts. And we were going there to check it out, what was going on with them. We were over there visiting Scottree and we visited a bunch of factories on that trip. So this was, as you can see, it was June 2013. And what else can we find? Oh yeah, so here is Mark talking about the end-of-line testing procedure. Now this is one of the things that they take really seriously as well. We were in the factory, so you can see this PC, and what was this running? It might have even been running the Arduino IDE. I can't remember. I think the test jig for this job was basically built using an Arduino that was probing a whole lot of things that the board was doing. So this was part of setting up the test system at the factory so that they could be doing verification. And these were some notes that we were showing. And I don't even know if this is interesting. Probably not. It's interesting to me. I'm looking back over this historical stuff. Let's find somewhere here. What's this one? Oh, this is an old photo of Shenzhen, I think. Was this in Shenzhen? Yes, I think it must have been. Because on the after I've got to find. Yeah, I think this was after leaving Beijing. Somewhere here I've got a photo of, oh there it is, look at this. For those of you who have been to Shenzhen, this is a bit of a historical photo. This is the, so I think that's Waichung North Road. I can't remember. Anyway. Clicking through a random slideshow of stuff is something that I should be doing in my own time. Not when you're here looking over my shoulder. Somewhere. Oh, okay, yes. I've got photos here of, what's this one? Oh look, it's a little pick and place machine. This was this photo was taken in Waichung Bay. Going through the markets in there. What else is there? Oh yeah, yep, more stuff in Waichung Bay. If you want to set up a car park, then this is where you buy the barriers and all of that sort of thing. So this is getting off topic. The point of all of this is that this company has been very, very good to me for a very, very long time. They have produced a large number of boards. They've done more than just they've done more than just make PCBs. They have done all of the packaging, the end-of-line testing. They've built test jigs. So this is one of the other things, is that testing of boards is hard. It sometimes, in fact, maybe a lot of the time, it takes more effort, more time to design the test procedure and build the test system than to design the board that you're testing, which seems like a total, yeah, it seems like a total backwards thing, but testing is really, really important. A lot of factories will just take the attitude of, we put the parts on the board and you get what you get. But with one of the things that I wanted to do right from the start with Freetronics was to be really cautious about only providing boards that I knew would work. So if I ship a board, I know absolutely 100% that it has been tested and that it worked at the point at which it was sold. And that obsession means that the number of returns has been incredibly low. The number of, sometimes boards will fail, like the boards always fail. You can have a board that you ship and it works perfectly, and then you take it out of the box and it doesn't work. These things happen because of temperature variations and rough handling and all sorts of reasons. But one of the bits of feedback that we got from Electus early on was that they didn't have any warranty claims with our stuff. So, and this was really, really satisfying. Typically what happens is that if a customer, if a retailer buys from a supplier and they have boards coming back or product coming back for warranty claims, they will then push that back to their supplier and claim, they'll either claim for replacement units or for credit off future orders or something. Like there will be some compensation. The end customer, like not the end customer, the retailer wants 100% yield on their sales. They don't want to be wearing the cost of warranties. And after we'd been selling boards through JCar for a while, there was some time, I think it might have been when I was in Sydney, I was actually at the JCar/Electus offices and we were talking about stuff. And the whole subject of warranties came up. And the feedback we got was, the usual thing was, like, where are the warranty claims? What's happening with warranty returns? And their response was basically, we don't have any. Like, people just don't return Freetronics boards. And I mean, obviously it did happen from time to time, but the number was so small, the percentage was so small that they didn't even notice. It was irrelevant to them. And that that was something that I personally found was really satisfying. And so other things that they would sell, they would get, a certain percentage, and they would track it because this is an important business metric. You need to know what your returns are because it eats into your margin. It's also a very big burden because the cost of dealing with a return is significant. It's an exception to the normal sales process. The customer has come back into the store, you've got the product. Now that product you need to get a credit for, so there is a process for accounting for it, and then that working its way back up the supply chain to whoever is going to honor the warranty and cover and wear the cost of the fact that that unit failed or was returned under warranty. So the cost to a business of carrying warranties is more than the cost of selling the thing in the first place. So if you get something that comes back under warranty, you have to sell multiples of that same thing to get back to zero, to make it up. And so things like rate of return is really, really important. And the obsession that that we had, and Mark had as well. So Mark really taught me a lot about end-of-line testing and making sure that the boards that go into boxes, you are absolutely confident are doing exactly what you intended. And the result was that what ended up in customers' hands almost always was solid and worked. So part of the point of telling you that is when you are talking to an OEM or a company that is going to provide services to you for manufacturing, that sort of attention to detail and setting up test procedures and making sure that what you get has been through that filtering process, boards have been reworked if necessary, they come to you clean, known working, in good condition. If you can end up in a situation where your relationship with your suppliers means that you have essentially a 100% yield, that puts you in a really, really good position. Because for every percentage that your yield drops, you are adding a burden to yourself, adding an expense to yourself. So you don't want those exceptions. You really need to avoid them. Okay. Where am I going with this? What? Hang on, I'm heading towards 2 hours. That's not possible. I can't talk for 2 hours. I can never talk for 2 hours. You all know this. Yeah, so that is a Freetronics box. You can see it says 6 pieces. This was back in the early days. This photo is old, years and years old. So these boxes used to be made out of this unfinished cardboard. So it's just like a brown surface cardboard. And part of that was that in the early days, we very much wanted to make sure that the packaging was recyclable and minimal impact. And that's carried through with lots of things. And in fact, this is something that that Mark thought of, and I think is actually really cool, is, well, this is cardboard, that's recyclable, that's no problem. Now, one idea he had was to design these, the actual clamshell. Normally when you get a product, the packaging is a throwaway item. You rip it out of the box, you care about this, you don't care about this. And so he had the very cool idea. So it says free project parts tray included. Make the packaging actually have value. So it says our product holder is specially designed to be reused as a project parts tray. So the idea is that you have taken it out of the box, and once you're done with this is actually useful. You can have that on your bench. You can, what have I got here? Oh look, I just happen to have some nozzle holders that might happen to come from a KO A4 pick and place machine. So you can use it as a tray. You could reseal it and use it as a container to put things in. You could cut it across here and have 2 small trays. This, the other version of this, which has this all as one big open compartment. Oh look, yeah, here's one of the small ones. So this is the one from the shorter box. That's a tray. I had this on my bench because I use it regularly as a tray to put parts in. And so it's not something that you just throw away and waste at the end. It's kind of sustainable and cool. So yeah, David T says mixing epoxy. I do the exact same thing. I have a little stack of these trays. Oh, something else I'll show you. Let me, there's another type of package. Modules, I'm looking for. Where are, oh, come on. And yes, I know my box finding thing should solve this problem for me, but it's not running right now. I pulled the camera and everything off the thing somewhere up. Oh, there it is. I have a box up there. I'm probably going to bump that overhead camera. I have a box up here with modules. So, I have photos of the machine that does this. Let's see if I've got an open one. Oh, there's one that's off, and this and this. And then I'm going to find a photo that goes along with this. So this is one of the other retail things that we did. So this is for little modules like the humidity sensor. This is a light sensor. And the idea is that this is retail friendly. It can hang on a store display, and it has the module in there. The module is attached using removable glue. And if I peel this off, it's got, the back of this has come off clean. There's nothing on it. And there is this glob. It's kind of like silicon. It's weird stuff. I don't even know what it is, but it's like a glob of glue that gets put onto the, I can see my JLC PCB delivery I'm watching on the camera at the front. I've got stencils and JLC PCB has just arrived. So yeah, there is this glob. So what happens is, the way this is packaged, they print the cards, it goes into, it gets a glob of this special glue put onto it. It's a glue that doesn't leave residue, basically. It's tacky, so you can put something on it and it will stick there, but then you can peel it off and it comes off cleanly. And you can, like if I do this, I'd be able to roll it off the cardboard as well. Well, it doesn't come off the cardboard as easily as it comes off the PCB, which is perfect because then you end up with a nice clean PCB. So they print the cards, they put a dab of the glue on there, they put the module on it, and then what happens is that this little plastic cover sits in a machine, and I'll show you a photo of the machine in a moment. So this sits in a machine in a little cavity, and this goes on upside down. So it sits on top of it, and then the machine comes down, and then it does some kind of like an ultrasonic heat welding thing, and the plastic gets welded onto the cardboard, and it ends up like this. So this is a sealed one. So you can open it up just by grabbing it and ripping it and peeling the plastic off at the front. But that is how it ends up. So in order to do that, what Scottree did was buy a machine just for us. Let me find a photo of it. It is, but I am sure I do have a photo of this. Somewhere. Backing up. Oh, yes, I think I'm in the right area. Now this is a kind of out of focus photo. I will throw back to the desktop. I've got more photos as well that show it a bit better. So you can see there's a little machine down here that does some kind of packaging, and then this is the, what does it say? Automatic impulse blister sealing machine. So Scottree bought this machine just so that they could seal Freetronics products. And you can see down here there is a little piece of timber that's been machined, and it's got cavities where those little things go in. I'll find you another photo. Maybe this one? Oh, at least this one's in focus. That makes a change. So there we've got the machine, and you can see it's got like this turntable in front of it, and the turntable has three sections. Each section has 4 slots, and if we zoom in here, if I can zoom in, you can see the guide pins. So what they do is take the these little pieces of plastic, and they drop them into these holes face down, so that the cavity goes down into it. And then you can see the guide pins. So the cardboard, the piece of cardboard with the module attached to it, is dropped in between the pins so that it is all nicely aligned. It fits into that area right there, ends up in the right spot, and then the machine comes down. Basically, so they'll load a bunch and turn the turntable so that that bunch go underneath the working area of the machine here, which then comes down, and they press the big go button. This comes down and smooshes onto the top of it, and it does its like ultrasonic thermal whatever magic, and it bonds the plastic to the cardboard. And while that is happening, the one that has just been done is being unloaded by someone sitting on this side of the table, and the next one to be done is being loaded by someone sitting on this side of the table. So the whole thing is like it just goes in a circle. Person unloading complete ones on one side and someone loading new ones on the other side. Oh, look, you can see there's some Freetronics packaging sitting in the background there, and a bit of foam. So if you have bought a Freetronics module that has been on one of those little retail hang cards with the blister cover over the top of it, it was probably sealed in this machine. What else do I find? Any other photos? Oh yeah, so this is Mark and Alec. I think that's Alec. Next to the the blister sealing machine. So yeah, that was in Scottrey's office in Beijing. Yeah, as the date says, that was back in 2013. Alrighty. So, where am I at? Where are we at? I don't know. I have not been paying very much attention to the chat, so I hope I haven't been ignoring too many questions. I probably have. Yeah, so Chris says, I always assumed the Freetronics items were mass produced on big production lines, not 4 at a time. Great insight. Yeah, there are certain parts of the process, Peter says 6 minutes. There are certain parts of the process that are done manually. The PCB assembly, that is definitely automated. That's pick and place machines, and if you've seen my video from a few years ago where I did a tour of one of the IT production lines, that's basically what it looks like. Now, this is the other thing, is one of the differences with dealing with Scottrey is that they maintain the relationships with multiple suppliers, and this gives them some flexibility. In terms of things like PCB manufacturing, so in terms of where the bare PCBs come from, there are certain factories that have different strengths. It might be based on scale. There are some that are fantastic at producing 10 PCBs because you want to make some prototypes. There are some factories that won't talk to you unless you want 20,000 as an MOQ. And Johnny just sent me a super chat to remind me to thank Henrik for the super chat. So thank you, Henrik, and thank you, Johnny. And Henrik had a question. Is it hard now to create these PCBs because of the world chip loss? Yes, that is a real problem. There are a bunch of products that I cannot fit. Technically, yes, I could produce them, but it's not practical from an economic standpoint. The classic ones are the WizNet based, and well, any AT Mega based stuff is ridiculously expensive at the moment. you can buy AVR processors, but their price is just crazy. Like a chip that you would previously have been paying $2 for, you have to pay $20 for. You know, that sort of level of difference in price. And so there are many products like the Ether 10, the Ether Mega that are really popular, and I wish I could produce them. But if I was making them now, it would be costing me more to make them than I'd be selling them for. It's just not viable. And it is possibly, yeah, I want them to come back because they're good boards and they're really popular. Lots of people rely on them. There's one major customer in New Zealand, which is a white goods manufacturer who previously has bought heaps of Ether Megas from me. Like they would order hundreds at a time, and they want them, and I can't produce them. It's frustrating. So yes, the chip shortage is a problem. Yes. Oh, it is just about lunchtime. Now, I wanted to talk more about Scottree because these people are cool. As I've said before, they have looked after me, looked after Freetronics right from the start, and I think they've probably given me a false sense of how easy it is to do business with Chinese suppliers. You can probably hear that whippersnipper, can't you? It's very loud here. They've given me a false sense of how easy it is, because what they do, I can go to them and say, okay, there is a hurdle to get through. You have to get through the whole process of setting up for a new product. You have to convey all of the information required about the design, how you want it assembled, how you want it tested, how you want it packaged, all of that sort of thing. So there is effort and time involved initially when you are beginning to ramp up for making a new product. But for something like an existing product, like say a Freetronics 11 or one of these modules I was just showing you, that's really loud. They know exactly how to make those now. They've been making those particular products for me for years. I can send an email to Alec now at Scottree and say, make me 1,000 of the 11. And he'll say, no worries. And then a while later, some boxes will arrive. Like that is literally how easy it is for me to make that stuff happen. And that is because of the work that they have done to make it easy for me. To take a whole lot of that stuff out of my hands so that I don't have to worry about it. We've already done the legwork of figuring out all of the packaging and all of the other things that go with it. So, yes. I just glanced across at the chat and I just saw a comment. Gerald42 says, giant bees. What? Oh, giant. Oh, I know. I was thinking giant bees. What the hell are you talking about? No, it's the whippersnipper over the fence is the giant bees. Ah, okay. Now, so, Mark Smith just said $10 for an 18 mega 328p from LCSC. Yeah, that's not as bad as it has been. Stephen W says a single 2560 chip is $20. Yeah, it's just crazy. And there is a whole other conversation about the economics of manufacturing and how the cost of the bill of materials relates to the final retail product. I'm not going to go into that right now. I've talked about it a bit in the past, and the multiplication effect, the fact that if you have a certain percentage increase on one part in your raw bill of materials, the ripple on effect that has on the final retail price, it is a multiplier. It's not just a case of this chip cost me $1 and now it costs me $2, so therefore the retail price is $1 more. No, no, no. It has a much bigger impact than that. That's a whole other complicated conversation, and it's probably a conversation that would be good to have with someone else as well, like Sion, other people that have experience with this and have their own perspectives on it. All very interesting, but slightly off the subject. So Peter is telling someone to turn the lights off. All right. If you have She Who Shall Not Be Named next to you, hit that mute button right now. Because I think it is time for me to wrap this up and say, Alexa, please turn off the office lights.
Okay.
And now I'm sitting in the dark. Oh, that looks... What? Sitting in the dark. I have no idea what that was. You just recorded my own voice and played it back to me. That looks really spooky. This is like the Halloween edition. I don't know why. So, yes. I am... Oh, so Henrik is in Tallinn. I love Tallinn. That is such an awesome city. I'd love to go back to Tallinn one day. And I really hope to. Peter says, Evil John. Yeah, it's lunchtime. So I am going to go. I'm going to open the box. Maybe I should do that on a live stream. I was going to say I should open the box from JLC PCB that is currently sitting at my front door because it has the Rockling PCBs in it for the Open Hardware Mini-Conf that's coming up. It's like, yes, Aaron says, like Holly from Red Dwarf. I am Holly. Where I'm going to leave this with is a very brief summary. Going forward, my attitude, what I had thought I was going to talk about today was all my plans for Super Lab and that sort of thing. I've got heaps of stuff to talk about with that. But where this leads to is what I want to be doing, which is having positive relationships with good people, doing business in a way that is respectful and where everybody wins. And doing that, and part of that is I want these people, Scottree, to win. They have done good stuff for me. It's like this whole live stream has been a big promo for Scottree. But if me doing a live stream results in them gaining customers and their business succeeding, then that's worth it. I want to do that because it's one little thing that I can do to help repay them for all of the years that they have helped me. So, Adam says, can you tell Scottree to enable HTTPS? I don't know. Henrik says, make Arduino basic video, what it is and how to use. Thanks for the super chat. Maybe. There are a lot of resources about that already, but thanks for the suggestion. That could be worth doing. So I'm going to wrap it up today, and what am I going to do? I need to... Everything is messed up with my streaming setup right now. So I am going to hit play on this, and you should either go and have lunch, have breakfast, or have a 3 a.m. what is it? A 3:05 a.m. snack. And I will Colin said, will you ever get to a stage where you help incubate startups and pass on other related experience? I don't think I have the knowledge. All I can do is, I don't have the breadth of knowledge. All I can do is explain what's happened for me. It's just sharing my story. Oh no, I locked my computer again. I keep accidentally locking my computer. All right. As Sion says, scratch you all later, and have a fantastic weekend. And I will catch you all really, really soon. Okay, so see ya.